friends! Welcome back to the channel. Today I am really excited for this video. So I saw Books with Neen do this and it was very recent and I was like, I need to do this too. This is so fun. So that means today we are doing the ultimate book recommendation tag. This isn't directly the original one that I found on the internet. That's a different one. I might do that one at a different time. Some of the questions are the same, but I'm going to stick to the one that Neen had in her description. And yeah, we're going to start recommending books. I have a very interesting selection and like loose idea of things that I'm going to recommend and like how I feel about them. My goal is to recommend books that I often talk about a lot of these on my channel, so it's not like something super new, but it is a good, often starting point for genres, hopefully. We'll see how that goes. That's kind of like the thought though. We're gonna just jump right in with question number 1. A book you tell people is your favorite. I have a lot of favorites. I find myself to be a very blessed reader who loves a lot of books. So I'm gonna go similar to how Books with Neen did. I'm gonna do by genre so that we get like a full taste of my favorites, you know? So if we start looking at the genres that I typically read, we've got fantasy, we've got horror, we've got thriller, and then romance, if you will. So I kind of stuck to those themes because those are what I'm most comfortable in, what I read the most. And when it comes to fantasy, from this year, I love with my whole heart The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. This is so much fun. It's a pirate book where you're on the last hurrah with the crew to get some money, to save some people, just like set life up for her daughter. She is a pirate with a kid with a whack of a dad. That twist was so much fun. But it's one of those stories where it's like the last adventure. You've got a middle-aged main character who gets the rag team back together for the last voyage to basically save her daughter, not directly but indirectly, by getting enough money to like support the family for as long as they need, as well as having a somewhat connection and tie to her father and that storyline. And it's wonderful. It's told in like an interview style setting and the ending almost made me tear up. I really enjoyed this and I highly recommend it to anybody. But that one, that's a bit more of like an adult fantasy that's very fantastical. I don't know. It's so hard with fantasy. I read a lot of fantasy, a lot of YA fantasy and a lot of adult fantasy. I really adored The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, and so I would highly recommend that to anybody because it's not too big brain of like an epic fantasy or anything. But the other favorite, which is also adult, is The Night Circus. I don't want to get up and grab it. But that's another favorite that I tell people I love and adore all the time. I prefer that one way over The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I think it's impeccable and I tell everybody it's my favorite. The thing is, I have many favorites. It rotates on a cycle of what's my favorite and what's not. But I truly adore The Night Circus. It's not for everybody though, but I just love the circus vibes. Love it. Alright. Going into thrillers, I have a few favorite thrillers. One of them being They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. If you've not read this and you read thrillers, even if you're not like a big thriller fan, you need to read They Never Learn. It is jaw-dropping. Halfway you get to like the first big twist and it knocked my socks off. When I first read it, I rated it like a 3-star, and then no, I think I rated it 4. I think I rated it a 4-star when I first read it, and every thriller I have picked up since has only made me bump the rating for They Never Learn up. It is now a 5-star on Goodreads. I truly, truly, truly adore it. I think it was so well done. It is more mature. There are difficult conversations. It's a thriller though, so like kind of expected, but it does take place on a college campus where there's two perspectives: a student at the campus with her friends kind of living like the day-to-day, seeing the college life. And then there's also the perspective of a professor who works at the school and might be potentially, allegedly, letting bad men that do bad things to women meet their doom a little soon, a little early, you know? It's wonderful. It's so much fun. It is so much fun. It's very twisty, very turny. The ending was very, like, dramatic in a great way. It was just a lot of fun, and I really recommend it. It's so good. So that leaves horror. I have 2 picks, and I'm not sure which one to tell you about. They're kind of in the same vein. So, first one, I have Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This is my most recent read from Sager, and I loved and adored this. This is like your typical haunted house story, a book within a book. We're following Maggie? Yes. We're following Maggie 20 years later as the passing of her father happens. She inherits the house that they only lived in for 20 days, and she tries to crack the case about these haunted, spooky house that her dad wrote a book on. It's wonderful. It was so much fun. I finished this in one sitting. I devoured it. The other book, The House on Abigail Lane by Keelan Patrick Burke. Look how short this is. Please read this. If you haven't read this, genuinely, why? It is so good. It's 95 pages. Read it. Come on. I cannot wait to reread this. I think I'm going to read it again in the fall. This is wonderful. This is the legacy, the story of an ordinary home. Since the construction in 1965, people have vanished as soon as they go upstairs. The only clues, the things they leave behind: a wedding ring, a phone, an eye. It's basically just like the news clippings, somebody writing an article of the day that the house was built to the day that the house is demolished, and it's so good. Keelan Patrick Burke writes very good short horror, and I adore all of them. I highly recommend this one though. Like, it deserves so much more hype and love. It is so good. This is really good. This is really good. I really like spooky house stories. That's just like something for me, but I think it's very easy to recommend these kinds of stories to people who want to step their toes into horror because they're not too scary. Like, there's moments where your heart starts to beat a little bit faster, you're on the edge of the seat, but it's not a horror to the point where like your stomach is hurting and you feel sick. Like, it's not too intense, but they are so much fun. And they give you like that thrill, the fun of watching horror movies kind of vibe. So I definitely recommend those for horror. I guess I'll honorable mention that I tell people my favorite like contemporary magical realism would be Before the Coffee Gets Cold trilogy. So good. So good. I would have my copies to show you, but I've lent them to my entire family. They're passing them around without even telling me. Because I like them so much, I made my mom read them. My mom's enjoyed them so much, she's making everybody else read them. So I guess that just like goes to say that they're fantastic. They're heartwarming and heartbreaking. It's just this little coffee, no, it's a tea shop, coffee shop. Before the Coffee Gets Cold, it's a coffee shop. Wow. I'm so sorry. It's about a coffee store in Tokyo. It's a very hole-in-the-wall kind of shop, and basically if you sit in the seat, you can travel back in time or in the future to a moment that happened in the shop, and so long as you get back before the coffee gets cold, you're fine. It's beautiful. It's basically an anthology set in one place. It's very well done. It's wonderful. I love it. Yes, favorite. Okay. Next question. A book that is your guilty pleasure. Okay. My guilty pleasure genre would have to be like fantasy romance. Heavy on the romance. Like, all romance, little plot. I eat it up. I don't know what it is. I'm slowly stepping my toes more into it. It's taken me a little while. I would say my very first like guilty pleasure book was Black Sunshine by Karina Halley, because that book was so wild, and I listened to it overnight in one sitting. I didn't sleep because of it, And it was absolutely a time I'll never forget. It was one of those it's so bad it's good type of moments. I've yet to continue with this duet, but oh my god. It's kind of a lot, but it's so bad it's good, and I just love that feeling of cheese, of cringe in my books sometimes. Most recently, it would be the Vicious Lost Boys series. There's 4 books in that. It's by Nikki Crow, and it is a Peter Pan retelling. Emphasis on like a lot of retelling. Characters are the same, plots not the same. I actually really enjoyed the plot of those books, but heavy on the steam. Oh my Lanta. It's kind of like a polyamorous. No, it's a why choose. It's a reverse harem. I wouldn't say that the boys are at all into each other. Could be, but they're not. That makes it a why choose. Anyway, moving on. I like fantasy romance as a guilty pleasure. So much fun. Number 3, a book everyone loves that I did not. I generally know what my reading tastes are. I know what I'll like and what I won't like for the most part, so I try to avoid picking up things that I'm like, I don't know. But the one that I did pick up, knowing I probably wasn't going to be a huge fan, but I was hoping to be because of all the hype, Carissa Broadbent's A Daughter of No World. I don't know what the series is called, but it's the first book in that series. Was not for me. It's a slow burn romance. It's a mentor-mentee romance, which is not my favorite. It is no plot until like the last 30% or so, and I was just very bored. It was very slow, but people love it. I just did not. It wasn't for me, and I've seen very, very few negative reviews. So that's a book that I just did not care for, but everybody else loved. So it works for people, just not for me. Question number 4, a book I read the fastest. So I mostly read books in like a day or 2. That's just like my norm because I listen to audiobooks most of the time whilst I'm reading. So it speeds up my reading process, sometimes upwards of 3 times speed. So I can finish a book on average in a day, if not two books in a day, which is how I read so much, which is great for me. But if we're talking about like me sitting down to read with my eyeballs, most likely The Death of Jane Lawrence. I love this book. It deserves so much love, so much hype, and I don't think it's gotten it. I know that this doesn't work for everybody. I think people go into it with a different expectation than what it is. Also, not everybody loves the main character, which I get, but I just thought this was so twisty. The ending is one of my favorites. It has stuck with me forever. I could not put this book down. There are very few times when I'm reading a book and I have that like one more chapter feel. It's not common. I can easily put down a book, and I can easily put down a book for 3 months. Like, it's not surprising to me, but for this one, every single time I picked it up, read until 3 in the morning. I couldn't help myself. Like, I just had to be reading it. I had to know what was going to happen. I was so invested. And I read this for the Literally Dead book club, and a lot of people didn't enjoy it, which is so heartbreaking because I think that their expectations went into it a little bit different than me. I knew it was horror, but I didn't know anything really about it. I just like the cover a lot. It's so fantastic. We are following Jane Lawrence as she's a bookkeeper, but her guardians, it's back in the wee olden days when women like had to live with people because they couldn't just like be on their own. But basically that family that's housing her, they're moving, and so she's like, okay, I don't really want to leave, so I'll just be a bookkeeper for this doctor, and in order to stay, I will talk him into an arranged fake marriage with me. I have no sexual desires. She's aromantic, asexual. I think she's asexual, and basically she's like, hey doc, you don't want to ever get married again. I don't really want to get married at all. Business proposition. I will help you with your business if you marry me and I can stay in the town. And that's basically the setup. And his only request is that she never goes to his manor. And she's like, Weird, but okay. Honeymoon, they end up at the manor and things get spooky, and I love it and I adore it so freaking much. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, this is probably the book that I've read the fastest with my own 2 eyeballs, which I'm sure I could fly through now that I've increased my like reading speed and comprehension myself. So, so good. Question number 5, a book that deserves more hype. So I have a YA and I have an, I think, adult. So the first one is Lobizona by Romina Garber. I think this book is wonderful. It is hard-hitting and talks about really relevant topics while still being fun and whimsical and fantastical. This is often pitched as like a new Hogwarts, which I get it. I get it. It's a wizarding sort of school. You've got Brujas and Brujas and Lobizonos that go to like this little magical school. And she, due to unfortunate circumstances, finds her way in the forest, going to now suddenly attend the school. And we find out that she is a Lobizona, which is weird, and everyone's like, what the heck? They just thought she didn't have magic and was weird for finding the school. But this hits on really top words. This is a book that hits on really hard topics, such as, what's that word? Deported? I feel so unintelligent right now. Basically, she is living with this older woman and her mom, and ICE is constantly like terrorizing the people and trying to find illegal immigrants and just like ship them back and all that whole conversation. And it's done very well in this book, and I'm not doing it justice because I am stupid. But anyways, I think this was really good. I'm so excited for a reread. I'm hoping to in October read this again and then finally finish it off with the sequel. Hopefully in time for a more announcement on Romina Garber's newest book. I think this is wonderful though. I've only seen 2 other booktubers talk about it, and I think it deserves more love because it's really good. Even though it's YA, it is younger, but it's just a really fun time. And I loved like the found family in it. I think it's very well done. And I think a lot of people can get like fun out of it. It gives you that like childhood nostalgic feeling. The other one that I want to mention is Earth Eater by Dolores Reyes. I really like this. It wasn't like a 5-star favorite or anything, but I did really enjoy it. It's basically following this girl who eats dirt and can see the history that has happened in the dirt. Can see deaths that happen. It's a wild power. It's insane. It is not an easy light read. It's short, but it's hard-hitting. I like books that make you really like think and feel things. And I really enjoyed this one. I just want more people to read it. I think maybe for, oh my god, maybe for selfish reasons, because I want to talk to more people about it and no one's read it, so I can't really talk to anybody about it. But it's a book that I think about often. It's a book that I really want to come back to and read again. And so if more people could read it so I could talk about it, that would be so wonderful. Next question is a book that became a movie or show. I have 2. No surprise. First one, Heartstopper. These are the new hardback UK editions. I've pre-ordered them. I love them. They're beautiful. And I'm so excited to have these. They're slowly getting released throughout the year. And I also have Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya. I adore both of these so much. They are beautiful, wonderful, perfect, absolutely incredible adaptations. This is obviously an anime, and I have never cried harder at a show. And this is a live action remake, and it is spot on perfect to the T with the books. Like, you understand everything. The characters are beyond perfect casting, and the little doodles, it makes you feel that nostalgic reading the graphic novel feelings and vibes by watching the show. But the characters are so good. This one's also made me cry a lot. Not as much. This one, I have never sobbed so hard at an anime or honestly a movie or TV show in years. This one made me bawl like a fucking baby. and this one is just absolutely wonderful and fantastic. I am so excited for season 2 to come out. I think August 3rd? Is that the news? Is that what I hear? Not sure. But I'm very excited for it. I'm very excited for it. But they are both wonderful. You should absolutely read them. Absolutely watch them. They are fantastic. Next question. Number 7, a genre I don't typically read. I have basically 3 genres. I don't read a lot of sci-fi. I've dabbled into sci-fi. It's not my favorite genre. I can do it for some things, but it's not one that I gravitate towards a lot. I need to be told explicitly to read them and then I'm going to like them, to want to step my toe into it, or like a friend really likes them. Contemporary romance, I will read it. I don't love it. I've never really like felt super strongly about any of them. And then also historical fiction. I just am not a historical girly. I thought I was. I would like to be. I pretend to be, but I'm not real. So it's one of those things, like if I'm told something is good and they recommend it to me, I'll pick it up, but I'm not like chomping at the bits to read those kinds of things. But there's always the outliers out that are really good. So I don't gravitate towards them, but I also don't refuse them flat out. Next one, a book that deserves all of the hype. Can I do it without looking? No. Are we even a little bit surprised? I love this book. I love this book so much. I didn't cry at the end, but I nearly sobbed. I held it in because I was talking to Eliza at the time of it happening, and so it kind of made me feel a little bit better because I was able to like get the emotion out via words rather than just crying over my book. I love this though. It is so much fun. It is so much cringe. It is just a silly good time, but it is so intense and there are so many emotions. There's characters to hate. Like hate. I've never hated characters more than I have in this book. There are characters to absolutely love and adore and root for. There are characters that make you want to cry. Oh, there's just so much. It's so good. And the dragons, oh my god, best dragons ever. I'm not even kidding. They're so good. I love this book. If you haven't read it yet, please do. I'm looking at very specific friends of mine, especially, who have not read this yet, and I'm like, you should. You should. The next question is books that I recommend when people ask, and I'm going to do those also by genre. As the only person in my real life that reads actively, I find myself recommending books often. I have one friend that I'm like trying to constantly force into reading, and then I have my boyfriend who I'm also constantly trying to force into reading, and now my mom. So basically I'm an influencer and I love recommending books. Do I do it on my YouTube channel? No, not really. Why? That sounds so much scarier. Telling my friends to read books on the internet, I get so scared that they're gonna hate a book and it's gonna be my fault and I'm gonna ruin their life. And I know that seems so silly, but like I don't want to hype up a book and like tell someone it's really good and then they not like it, because now I feel stupid. So I get really scared to like do recommendation videos and stuff like that. But I love recommending books. If people are like, you got any ideas? I'm like, heck yeah, boy. So that's what I'm gonna give you now. These are kind of my more generic answers when people are like, Sam, what should I read? What am I, blah, blah, blah. So for fantasy, especially for beginners dipping their toes into fantasy, trying to give it a shot, I highly recommend Caraval. This is one of my favorite books ever. This is by Stephanie Garber. I adore this. I've read it 3 times since I received it the year it came out. That's really fun for me. I read it every other year, it seems, and it is so much fun. It is basically following these 2 sisters, but you're really just sticking with one sister, and you're following Scarlett, who finally gets a ticket to Caraval. It's like a honeymoon present, like a little wedding present, because she is getting married to a stranger. It is arranged, and she gets a ticket to Caraval and decides, she doesn't really decide, her sister decides, screw it, we're going. So they end up going against Scarlett's will, and you get to participate in the games. You're there with Scarlett, who's playing the dang game. And it is twisty and turny, and there's so much going on. It is not a perfect book. There are some issues with it, especially with Donatella. She is not great. She's really annoying and skeezy and but the writing, the atmosphere, the setting is so impeccable. I really enjoy the romance. I know a lot of people don't, but it works for me. So it's one of those things, like, I know there's a audience that loves this just like I do, and I know that it's not for everybody, but I think for people getting into fantasy, this is a great starting point because you just get to be in the thick of, think of Venice. Think of Venice, Italy, with the canals. It's so beautiful. It's so wonderful. I love Stephanie Garber's writing, and this is like a really fun starting point for fantasy, in my humble onion. Oh no. Not me knocking all of the books over. So, for thrillers, I have two suggestions. First, I have the Writing Retreat, I can never do that right, by Julia Bartz. This is a thriller with a gothic horror atmosphere in the first half with like true thriller the second half. It is a lot of fun. It is about people winning a chance to go on a writing retreat with this very famous author and the adventure they go on in this mansion in like the middle of a snowstorm. It's very atmospheric. It is very fun. I really loved the characters and the twists in this, and it's just a very easy thriller. Like, it doesn't take a lot of brains or anything. It's very short and very quick, and I just think it's a lot of fun. So this is a good starting point for thrillers. And then if you want something a bit more advanced for a thriller, maybe you've read a couple, I recommend anything by Ruth Ware. Have I read all of Ruth Ware's backlist? No, not yet. My friend Melody is though, so stay tuned to her channel for that. But I really enjoyed the It Girl. I've read one by one. I have like 4 others on my TBR. I've had so much fun with Ruth Ware. She's a very popular author. I believe she's British. Yeah, she lives in England. So it's just like a really fun time. There's always good twists. There's always good characters, and they're just very well thought out. And so, popular for a reason. Makes sense. I would say that if you're trying to get more into thrillers, Ruth Ware is a very good start. Ruth Ware, Peter Swanson, Riley Sager. All hit or miss thriller authors, but they're some of the biggest names out there, and I think Ruth Ware rightfully does. I love the It Girl, by the way. So, yes. And then we have sci-fi. I have two. My young adult sci-fi recommendation, Scythe by Neil Shusterman. Well loved, well deserved, well hyped. This came out so long ago. 2016. So yeah, this is an oldie but a goodie. It's very well loved. Neil just came out with Gleanings, which is like the short story collection. This is about scythes. They're living in a utopia world where, I'll just say, they're living in a dystopian. It's a dystopian sci-fi. They're living in a dystopian where people no longer die, everyone lives forever, but population control needs to happen. Therefore, you have scythes who are tasked with killing the people in ways in which they would have in the natural world. So like drownings or car accidents, and like they mimic those kinds of deaths. It's very interesting, very weird. Everybody knows that it's like a part of society, like it's just normal and has to happen, and we are following 2 apprentices 2 apprentices who are following this one guy whose name I don't remember, and they're basically training and fighting within each other. Like there's a competition between them to see like who's gonna come out on top to be a scythe, even though neither of them really want to. It's a wild ride. It gets dark for a YA, heavy sometimes, but really good. And then this is technically YA, but I'm going to say it's adult because holy cow, so much happens, and it's so good. I can't wait to reread this. It's got a Hunger Games vibe towards like the middle end, but the series goes so much further than just Hunger Games, but I love that part of it. I won't lie, it was a lot of fun. In this we are following Darrow, who is a red and his very unfortunate happenstances, which did make me cry a lot. And there's a very beautiful song. I highly recommend the audiobook. I'm going on so many tangents. I am not okay today. But we're following Darrow, who is Irish. It's Scottish, Irish, so hot. And he basically, after unfortunate events, is manufactured is not the right word. But sort of. He's genetically modified into a gold, which is like the highest tier of society, because they find out that what they thought they were striving towards was making Mars habitable for the other classes, and they've actually been living on Mars for a while and the rest of the galaxy, and everyone's doing fine except for the Reds, who are the miners and of bad quality of life. So Darrow kind of infiltrates the gold and joins the not Hunger Games but Hunger Games, and it's pretty badass. I'm a big fan of Red Rising. I think this is a great starting point for a lot of sci-fi readers getting into it. I think there's a lot to love in this, a lot of characters to love in this. If you're new to my channel, hi, I have a husky. His name is Severo because of this book. So you can say I'm a fan. As for romance, I don't recommend romance, although I could. I just don't read nearly enough of it to feel like I'm qualified to tell anyone what's good or what's not. I don't have any historical fiction to recommend. A book with my favorite character. I'll say, just to switch things up, you know, make it a little bit different. My sock is falling off, I'm so sorry. To switch it up, make it a little bit different, I guess I could say I really love the characters in the Bow Before the Elf Queen, Long Live the Elf Queen. Those are the two. Heck yeah. By, I believe, J.M. Curl. I adore these two characters. We've got our main lead, whose name I don't remember, and she's a badass elf, and we've got our male lead character, Thane, who I love and adore. He's so wonderful. There are so many tropes in these books. You've got the man falls first, you've got the touch or you die, you've got touch him, you die. There's just like so much goodness in it. It's an arranged marriage, it's fated mates. There's just like a lot going on, but I really liked it and I loved the plot. I need a third book. I need to know what happens. I need updates. I'm losing my mind still. I really recommend these though. I love these characters so much. I love the side characters. They hurt me a lot, but I really enjoy these books. I really enjoyed the audiobook experience. They were wonderful, and I really recommend them. These characters are so fun, and I wish that I was a badass elf. Ooh, a book I wish I could live in. I haven't talked about this for this reason. So, one of my favorite books of all time that I will scream from the rooftop. I recommend this to so many people. If you're starting out and you want to read any like fantasy horror, this is the one. It reads younger, but it's still spooky. It's very atmospheric. You feel like you are there. It is wonderful. I love and adore. But if I had to live in a world, it would probably be this, because this reminds me very close to home. I live in Oregon, and the Oregon coast is a very fun place to frequent. It is very cold and gray and stormy with rocky little ocean waves, and it's such a fun time. And this book gives me those vibes. So hardcore. We're following the Thamen sisters? But we're following the sisters, and they live like in a very nice manner on this really nice private island, but it's close enough that they can like travel into the town, and the town is so nice, and I just love the setting. I love being on the ocean. I love all the boats. It is wonderful. There's a lighthouse. It's so good. This is where I would choose to live any day of the week. These are the vibes. I just want to curl up in a little ball and read my books and drink my hot cocoa. Is that too much to ask for? And like kiss cute boys and go to dances at the balls with my little pretty dresses. I love it. I love it here. I love it here. I want to go back all the time. It's so wonderful. It's so great. Anyway, a book you thought you'd hate but didn't. I had an answer. I have an answer. My answer, House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I did not love Survive the Night, which was my first ever Riley Sager. So when I picked this one up, I was like, I think I hate it. I don't think I like this one at all. And then the twists happen and it goes places you don't expect it to and didn't think Riley Sager would go. And then it got really good. Riley Sager is always a fun, silly time. Even if you're hate reading, it is so much fun to read Riley Sager, even when it's bad. And I just always have very fond memories. And this one was a fond memory indeed. It was a lot of fun, even though it was annoying. The main character is a drunk, and it's really annoying having an unreliable narrator because she's drinking because she has trauma and needs therapy, and is instead shipped to a house where across the lake are her new neighbors who have something going on. It's a little weird. It's a little suspicious. This was really fun though, and it was a good time. I really didn't think I would enjoy it at all. I thought it was going to be another 2-star, but turned out I think I rated a 4-star? 3-star? 3-star, but I think I look back on it as a 4-star because it was a lot of fun and I just enjoyed the experience. So, woohoo. Okay, next one. A book that made me ugly cry. I only have two books in the entire existence that made me ugly cry. And it was The Traveling Cat Chronicles and A Man Called Uva. These made me sob like a fucking baby. I have never cried harder than I did at The Traveling Cat Chronicles. How I cried at The Traveling Cat Chronicles is how I cried to the anime Fruits Basket. Like, I am a fucking baby sobbing. It was, oh, my heart. My heart. So, A Man Called Uva is written by Fredrik Backman, translated from Norwegian? Or something like that. And it is basically following a cranky old widow. And he's just kind of, you know, his wife died. He's kind of just barely living life. And new neighbors move in. And basically it's just the story of them adopting him into their lives. We've got, I want to say her name is Marina. And her husband. And I believe she has a daughter. And I think she's pregnant. Don't quote me on that. But it's a very touching story. It's very contemporary, literary fiction. Like, not a whole lot really happens, but it really tugs at the heartstrings. This has been turned into 2 movies now, and I haven't seen either. I really want to though. But ouch! The ending made me cry. I listened to this mostly on a road trip by myself, and the going was going, and then the last like hour and a half to 2 hours I was like feeling emotional, and then I came home and I listened to the last hour by myself and I just fucking cried. I remember exactly, it was when my office was very different and I had my desk right here, and I just remember coming home, locking myself in the office so I could finish it, and just sitting at my desk silently crying. It was very touching and very good. And then The Traveling Cat Chronicles is following a cat. You do get his perspective as well as the perspective of the owner, who is traveling around, I believe, Japan, trying to find a new home for his cat because he can no longer take care of him. And it's very quickly, like, you can kind of deduce what's going on, but it hurts all the fucking same. And I remember this experience, I read at the beginning of the year. It was like my 2nd or 3rd book, and I just sat there reading it. And Austin starts making dinner and I'm just finishing up the last couple pages. I'm sobbing. The page is blurry. I can barely read the words. I've never cried at a book so hard. And the worst part is I knew what was coming. I knew what was happening. I knew how it was going to go down. And I still cried like a baby. Oh my god, it hurts me. It hurts me so much. It's so good. I cannot wait to own copies. Ow. I want to reread them, but I know it's gonna hurt. And then final question, a book that I wish I could read again for the first time. So many, but honestly, I know we've already talked about it, but I need to experience this again. It's so much fun. There's like heartbreak along the way. I really love the romance. I literally just bought a bookmark and it says Zaddy's Girl. We don't need to talk about it. I really love this book. I understand people who love like ACOTAR. Like, I have not read it so I don't get it, but this I assume is like the same feeling. Like, it consumes all of your thoughts and you just want to think about it all the time. You want to reread it all the time. No other book will ever compare. Like, I'm technically still in a reading slump because I don't want to start anything that's not this. Like, this is my everything. So I get the girlies who are obsessed with books now. It's very rare for me to obsess over books like this. It really does happen like once in a blue moon, maybe once a year. I just head over heels fall in love with books, and that's all I can do is think about them. But that's the one. Oh my god, is that the one? There's so many though. But that one especially. I think I'm lucky in the sense that I remember too much about books, and I remember them very well even after years since I read them, but also unfortunate in the sense that I can't really re-experience that feeling of reading it for the first time. My boyfriend, crap memory. He rereads a book and he's like, it's all fresh information. Like, he rewatches movies and he's like, this happens? And I'm like, yeah, we've seen it 10 times. So it's a blessing and a curse. I can remember a lot about the books that I read. Great for reviewing. Terrible for re-experiencing them. But that's it. That's the video. This was a long one. I can feel it in my voice. But this was a lot of fun. I'm so glad that I did this. I basically just needed to talk about books that I love. I talk about a lot of these often. I know Fourth Wing has been on my channel almost in every video. I can't not talk about it. Caraval, Death of Jane Lawrence, House of Salt and Sorrows. Those are books that I frequently mention and talk about and recommend. But it's kind of nice to throw in other things here and there that I like. I'm sure if I did this tag in a year from now, I would have vastly different answers. So yes, so fun, so fresh. That's the video. We did it. I'm losing my voice. I'm talking too much. But I love talking to you guys, so it is okay. It is worth the risk. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you for hanging out with me. I will see you guys in my next video rather soon. Not sure what it'll be, but I hope it's a good time. And until then, I'll see you later. Bye!